This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, the third hour of the program, and I feel maybe slightly like I owe you an apology. I worked very hard to not make every show just about politics and the state of the election and stuff, and today I've somewhat failed, but there is just so much news out there. And I got to actually talk about the economy, but it is also tied to politics. I'm going to play this clip. This is Governor Glenn Youngkin. Let me hang on a second. I got to reroute this, make this happen. Okay. I want to play this clip. This is Governor Glenn Youngkin. He was on CNBC talking about Virginia and the economy.
You had a career in the private sector, and I think you have a pretty good feel, even in Virginia, for what works to try to grow the economy. Yeah. Can you, in your view, summarize what this election looks like?
Well, at the end of the day, the top issue by far, I mean, by a huge margin, is the economy. And the reality for Americans and Virginians is the last 3.5 years has been rough. There's been unprecedented inflation like we haven't seen in 40 years. And that has translated into real challenges where Virginians and Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Listen, over the last year, over 500,000 Americans have had to take on a second job in order to make ends meet. We still have not seen a return to the labor participation figures that we saw pre-pandemic, and we actually saw unemployment increase. And so at the end of the day, this is about jobs, this is about economic confidence, and this is about Americans feeling like their government, and particularly their federal government, is going to deliver for them. One of the real observations that folks have to have is we have seen about 10 states driving the entire U.S. economy. We have winning states and losing states. And the reality is we need the whole country to be driving forward, not just 10 states driving the entire U.S. economy and job growth. And that translates into the need for manufacturing to be returned into job growth. That translates back into Americans feeling like they can earn a living and pay for the basics, groceries and gas and their electric bill and rent and a mortgage. And to date, Americans are saying very clearly that what they've experienced during the Biden-Harris administration is the exact opposite. And that's why the economy is the number one issue on the ballot.
Okay. Everything you said there is right. Everything you said there is true. Here is the headline from Politico yesterday. This is the headline. Harris is riding a dream economy into the election. It may be too late for voters to notice. Voters still feel the day-to-day costs are expensive, and thus there's a limit to how much improvement this news will bring for her, says Democratic pollster Carly Cooperman. Annual inflation has fallen to 2.4%, its slowest pace since early 2021, signaling that the price spikes that have clouded President Joe Biden's 4-year term are over. The latest numbers released on Thursday add to a solid economic picture that's coming together just weeks before the 2024 election. The question now is whether it's too late for Vice President Kamala Harris to get credit for it. Except, this is something I think that the reporters like Victoria Guida at Politico don't understand. Inflation hasn't fallen. It has slowed. There's a difference. You have 20% increases in prices, and now prices are up instead of 5 or 6 more percent, only up 2.4%. That's still an increase. It has slowed. And reporters look at this and they're, oh my gosh, this is great news. We don't have 8% inflation right now. We only have 2% inflation, but we had 8% inflation. Prices never came down. They just didn't go up as much. And when reporters say this, they tend to show their cluelessness and also their partisanship. But also, notice something that Glenn Youngkin said. We've had 10 states leading the economy. 10 states. Those 10 states are where the press corps lives. They're the big states for the most part. New York and Virginia actually has done well. The D.C. area is exploded. California is doing okay. Texas is great too. All the other states, though, they matter. And the press corps doesn't live in those states, and so they see everything as fine. I want to read you this message. Keep the guy out of it. But I replied to this Politico headline that Harris is writing a dream comedy. I said, here's why Harris is losing. She and the political press reside in the same bubble where everything is fine while the rest of America has had to cut back because of gas and groceries over the last 3 years. So my correspondent, Chris, he replies, lives out in Arizona. I'll read you his tweet. I was talking to a rancher neighbor. He's pretty apolitical. He told me he usually only votes in state elections, doesn't waste his time on national politics. He was asking me about stock market, and I gave him the generic, well, the economic data has been better, good jobs numbers, market's been resilient. He sarcastically said, yeah, because inflation's so bad that we ran out of money to buy things, so of course inflation isn't going up. The government just hired an extra 1 million government workers to make the jobs data look good. So we were chatting. He told me he's actually been reading the jobs reports and the economic data. He says he's voting Republican down ballot, even though Trump's stance on social issues strongly go against his Christian values. But he said the ranching community can't take 4 more years like this. I agree Trump drove some moderates away from the GOP, but you can't talk to average apolitical people and say that 4 years of Biden haven't driven them to at least tolerate Trump for some change. I agree. The people who aren't worshiping politics are hurting. And they're hurting because of an economy that everyone tells them is fine. And what have the Democrats started doing? They've started lecturing everybody. Democrats have given up on persuading people. They're lecturing people. If you don't like the economy, it's just because you're a Trump moron. If you don't like the economy, it's because you're a bigot. If you don't like the economy, it's because you've lost your mind. If you don't like the economy, it's because you just don't appreciate Joe Biden enough. If you don't like the economy, it's because you believe Fox News and not your own lived experience. No, the lived experience sucks. Y'all, I just paid $13,000 to put a downstairs air conditioner in. I didn't want to, but I had to. The unit that I had was an older unit. It was there before we've lived in the house for 11 years. The unit was probably installed with the home. And they don't make the coolant for it anymore. And it's got a leak, and they couldn't fix the leak. They tried. And we knew this day was coming. We've been having to set money aside. And, we've kept setting money aside, and the prices just kept going up. And we hear, well, you can get a tax credit next year. Well, that tax credit may help me next year, but it doesn't help me right now. I mean, I make a good salary. But at the same time, we've been having to set this money aside now for a while. And twice they've had to come add new coolant. And every time they come, they keep telling me it's harder and harder to get this coolant. The Biden administration has regulated this stuff. You got to go with these new models. And look, we got a great air conditioning company that we work with. We knew this day was coming. The ultimate price was more than we had set aside because the price of just the air conditioning unit has gotten so expensive. The price of the coolant's expensive. And I make a good living. Think about the middle class family that's got to replace their air conditioning unit because of the regulations of the Biden administration have driven up the cost. They can't replace old parts with their old unit because they are not allowed to put in that coolant anymore because of the Biden administration. Think about the people in the cost of groceries, or your roof, or you need a new water heater. Democrats who are well off in coastal cities don't relate to the rest of America anymore. And they have embraced a level of progressive paternalism that this is really good for the environment, and because it's good for the environment, it's good for you. Your costs may go up. Your air conditioner may not heat as well or cool as well, but you'll get a tax credit next year, and this is going to save the planet, so it's going to save you. And go eat some bugs, by the way. Go eat some bugs. Give up your cows and eat cockroaches. That's the vision of the Democratic elite for America. Who wants that? It's some dystopian nightmare where these Democrats get to exempt themselves. You know, there's a study, a survey of Harvard upperclassmen. The overwhelming majority of them actually want to use the government to force you to give up eating meat, to force you to get out of your gas car, to force you to give up your way of life. And you know why they're comfortable with that? You all know why. Because they know they're not going to have to. They want to burden the working class. They want to burden the poor because they know they got the money. They'll be able to get a steak. They're not worried about it. They'll be able to get their red wine. They're not worried about it. They'll be able to live luxuriously in cool places. They won't have to eat cockroaches. That's for the poor. That's for the middle class, not for them. And there's a visceral reaction to that in the country. It's something the Democrats forgot. The Democrats have abandoned the working class for an elite who know the rules don't apply to them. And it's not changing anytime soon. As the upper income, highly educated white people become Democrats, it's only going to get worse. And so there is this backlash. And it's not just the working class. There are enough people in the professional class who went to college, to a state school on their own merit. They didn't have a family who had gone. They weren't legacies. And they resent these people as well. They resent the guy who got into Harvard because his father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather went there. And this guy is a cokehead alcoholic in high school, but gets into Harvard, gets straight A's, and gets a great job where he can continue to live his drug-fueled lifestyle. And you got to bust your butt. You went to state school. You're working in the same company as this guy. And that guy has the country club membership and has all the connections because of his last name, not because of himself. And you're having to earn it. You resent like hell that guy. And that guy's voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because it's good for you. And he wants to lecture you about your lived experience in your life when you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. For them to tell you the economy is good and that inflation has gone down, does it feel like inflation's gone down to you? It may feel like the price of your groceries isn't going up as much as it was, but the prices are still going up. Has your income kept up? I bet it hasn't. They haven't been willing to be honest about the economic situation of the country because if they're honest about it, they have no justification for electing Kamala Harris. So they have to lie with vigor and hope that you believe it. It's the same way you got people on the right lying about the government controlling the weather and steering hurricanes. It's just a lie they're trying to get you to embrace because if they can get you to embrace it, they know they've got you. And the Democratic lie is that everything is fine with the economy. And if you don't like it, it's just because you've been listening to conservative talk radio and Fox News and everything is fine. It's fine for them. It's always been fine for them. But it hasn't been fine for anyone else for quite a while. And they don't appreciate that. And they can't acknowledge that because if they did, they would have to acknowledge the failure of their positions. And they will never acknowledge their failure. if Kamala Harris does lose, they will never acknowledge how bad her campaign was. It'll be the Russians, it'll be the lies, it'll be the disinformation, it'll be Twitter, it'll be Elon Musk, it'll be everything but her, because they cannot acknowledge their own lies, faults, and the things they tell themselves to keep themselves curled up at night.
Blinds.com's Cyber Monday Last Chance is happening now. Don't miss out on up to 45% off site-wide. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% site-wide, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson. Oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. All right, I'm going to do this here in a short segment because this is the Eric Might Be Losing It segment. The Northern Lights were out again last night in Middle Georgia. My kids and I, we were out until about midnight. We went out into rural country. Now, you could see them for a good while, even with the city lights, just the pink and purple hues. You couldn't really see the movement in the city lights. We went out to the country. It was starting to fade by the time we got out there. We got a few good pictures. This is the second time this year we've seen the Northern Lights. Hadn't ever seen the Northern Lights before. Twice this year. We got the earthquakes. We got everything else. Now, Foreign Affairs magazine says we're in the age of depopulation. For the first time since the Black Death in the 1300s, the planetary population will decline. But whereas the last implosion was caused by a deadly disease borne by fleas, the coming one will be entirely due to choices made by people. With birth rates plummeting, more and more societies are headed into an era of pervasive and indefinite depopulation, one that will eventually encompass the whole planet. What lies ahead is a world made up of shrinking and aging societies. Net mortality, when a society experiences more deaths than births, will likewise become the new norm. Driven by an unrelenting collapse in fertility, family structures, and living arrangements heretofore imagined only in science fiction novels will become commonplace, unremarkable features of everyday life. You got planetary depopulation of animal species as well. You can blame man, or just it's happening to every species. All right, can I just say, like, I'm not a big eschatology guy, like live in the present, but I think we're in the end times, folks. I actually do think, now I don't know when that day comes, but yep, I am totally buying into the fact that we're at the end times. Now, it's always been the end times theologically since the ascension. We've always been waiting for the second coming, but things just seem to be picking up pace. We've got population in decline by choice. We got all the northern lights out now. We got the volcanoes, and we got all these random earthquakes in random places around the world, and everything else happening. Yeah, I think we're kind of like get your affairs in order and make sure you love Jesus because he's coming soon. I just don't know what day it's going to be. Okay, now I'll move on from crazy talk. I need to tell you about Americans for Prosperity, because while we're still here, we still got elections and we still got issues to deal with, and Americans for Prosperity would love to have you work with them on those issues. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Americans for Prosperity can teach you how to be a great activist in your neighborhood, how to be persuasive with your neighbors and with your state government, with your local government. Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer is where you want to go. Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Go to AFP. Sign up with them. They'll give you all the facts and figures to make you the smartest person in the room. They'll teach you how to knock on doors to get out the vote if you want to do that, or how to explain to your neighbors common sense conservative solutions, because they got a lot of great common sense conservative solutions. And Americans for Prosperity would love to have you. Go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer today. Sign up with AFP. They are the largest and leading grassroots organization in the country. They happen to be conservatives, and they'd love to have you with them. They've got chapters in almost every state. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Sign up with them today. And then you too can help advance free markets, free people, and families across the United States of America. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. I want to plug texting Army to 33777 one more time, because I do, as Congress heads back, as state legislatures get back in January, having all of you involved. And this is really important. If you're listening to me by podcast from an area where I'm not on the radio, or if you're listening to my live stream from an area where I'm not on the radio, I really hope you'll text Army to 33777 and sign up so I can send you action alerts like your legislature's doing something. Call them, tell them to support it or stop it. Or Congress is, call them to tell them to stop it or start it. Or, like, for example, one of the places I would love to do the gathering next year is Richmond, Virginia, because I got a lot of online listeners in the Richmond area, but I don't have a radio station up there. But I think it'd be cool. It's close to D.C. We get some cool speakers. Glenn Youngkin's been asking me to come do it. The Attorney General up there has been asking, and I'd love to do it, but I got to be in contact with you guys who are in Virginia listening to the live stream of the podcast. The easiest way to do that is to text Army to 33777 and fill out the form. Okay. It's Friday. It's 2:37 p.m. Eastern if you're listening live. I've waited. I'm going to do this. I've decided. I want to begin with a piece. You know, the Atlantic's gotten pretty progressive these days, but occasionally they have some good stuff. I want to read for you a portion of an article. Now, I'm not a subscriber. I can only read you the beginning, but you'll get the point of it. It's by Charlie Wartzel. The truth is, it's getting harder to describe the extent to which a meaningful percentage of Americans have disassociated from reality. As Hurricane Milton churned across the Gulf of Mexico, I saw an onslaught of outright conspiracy theorizing and utter nonsense racking up millions of views across the internet. The posts would be laughable if they weren't taken by many people as gospel. Among them, InfoWars' Alex Jones, who claimed that Hurricanes Milton and Helene were weather weapons unleashed on the East Coast by the U.S. government, and truth seeker accounts on X that posted photos of condensation trails in the sky to baselessly allege that the government was spraying Florida ahead of Hurricane Milton in order to ensure maximum rainfall, just like they did over Asheville. As Milton made landfall, causing a series of tornadoes, a verified account on X reposted a TikTok video of a massive funnel cloud with the caption, "What is happening to Florida?" The clip, which was eventually removed but had been viewed 662,000 times as of yesterday evening, turned out to be from a video of a CGI tornado that was originally published months ago. Scrolling through these platforms, watching them fill with false information, harebrained theories, and doctored images, all while panicked residents boarded up their houses, struggled to evacuate, and prayed that their worldly possessions wouldn't be obliterated overnight, offered a portrait of American discourse almost too bleak to reckon with heads on. And then he adds this conclusion. As two catastrophic storms upended American cities, a patchwork network of influencers and fake news peddlers have done their best to sow distrust, stoke resentment, and interfere with relief efforts. But this is more than just a misinformation crisis. To watch as real information is overwhelmed by crank theories and public servants battle death threats is to confront two alarming facts. First, that a durable ecosystem exists to ensconce citizens in an alternative reality, and second, that the people consuming and amplifying those lies are not helpless dupes, but willing participants. It's absolutely true. You know, I'm from the South. I've been through a lot of hurricanes. Very big hurricanes sometimes weaken before they come on shore. One prominent alt-right person was alleging some level of government lies and conspiracy because Hurricane Milton got up to Category 5 and weakened to Category 3 when they came on shore. I saw another person, true story, take that data and suggest the government had a dial where they were cranking up and down the hurricane. Oh, we got it too strong, got to lower it. How do these things work? How do these things work? It's a problem. And one of the common things that pains me are the number of people who push this stuff, who call themselves Christians or Jesus is King and things like that. I heard Tim Keller. I was listening to a Tim Keller sermon the other day, and I mentioned it to y'all the other day, that when he's writing Ephesians, he gets into Ephesians 4, and he starts giving like practical instructions for living. And he says this, so I tell you and insist on it in the Lord that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do in the futility of their thinking. They're darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality so as to indulge in every kind of impurity, and they're full of greed. That, however, is not the way of life you've learned. When you heard about Christ, were taught in him in accordance with the truth in Jesus, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are members of one body. Forget the Jesus stuff if you're not a believer. Just meditate on this one single sentence. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. Every bit of your life, from when you wake up to go to bed to when you go to bed, throughout your entire sleep, is theological. Every bit of it. This is not me being Jesus preaching here. This is me making a very specific point that you've got to understand. Your entire life has a theology. Every single one of you has a cosmogony. A cosmogony is a theory for the creation of your universe. The cosmogony of a Christian or a Jew is found in Genesis 1. God made everything, and last day of creation, he made us. Your cosmogony may be Charles Darwin. There was a Big Bang. You don't know what was before the Big Bang, but the Big Bang ordered everything. A random confluence of events. The collision of atoms over time creates all things, and there's evolution and the like. But you have a worldview that derives from a cosmogony of how things were made, and all of this together is your theology. What is theology ultimately? What is it ultimately? There was I forget the guy's name, is a famous theologian, I think the 1600s, who said, theology is the science of living well. And we are not a well society. And why aren't we a well-ordered society? Why isn't our society well? Why aren't we mentally healthy? Because we have a bad theology. Each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, as for we are all members of one body. It becomes hard to speak truthfully when you yourself have been deluded by what you see on the internet. The more people are on social media, I think the more broken they get. One of the questions I get asked most these days is how do I know this isn't true? Or I've trusted this person for so long, they're telling me this, it must be true. People are being lied to, people are abusing it. And what you need to understand is what did Satan do? Everybody likes to talk about demon possession. The demons have possessed you. You know what the devil does? What he did from the very beginning, he lied. He lied. That's what he does. He lies. The prince of darkness is the prince of the air, and over the airwaves the lies go. And they're lying on social media. These people are of the devil. It doesn't matter their political philosophy. It doesn't matter their partisanship. They are of the devil. If their existence is to lie, and let me tell you, their incentive to lie is financial, because the more clicks you get on Twitter now, if you have a monetized account, you get paid. So you put up salacious, scary videos, CGI videos of tornadoes, conspiracy theories about the government and all these things, and you get a lot of money for it. And a lot of you believe it. I can't tell you the number of times people say, but what the government's doing is wrong. What FEMA's doing is bad. Okay, what FEMA's doing is bad, but what you're hearing about online, the things you're citing as proof of that badness, they're all lies. There are problems, but people are being exaggerated to and lied to. All of our life is theology, the science of living well. And when you have a well-ordered theology, you live well. And when your theology begins to break, and how does it break? You begin to disconnect it from an actual divine and make other things divine, politics, yourself, what have you. And you break down this one thing. So Paul in Ephesians 4, he starts off essentially that you heard about the faith, you've embraced the faith, you have to have new attitudes in your mind to put on your whole self. And then what is his very first practical thing? The practical application of what it means to take in real faith is stop lying to your neighbor. That the very first part. Ephesians 4:25, he goes through this entire, the headline that is put in later, obviously, by editors, instructions for Christian living, but it starts off very theological, very theological. These other people given over to sensuality, you've embraced Jesus, you know who Jesus is, blah, 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 blah. What is the very first practical application? It applies whether you're a believer or not, and it is, therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. You got to speak the truth. And if you're on Twitter ingesting lies and you can't discern that it's lies, you're going to start speaking lies and you're not even going to know it. That's what's happening. So many people are hearing about things. I saw this video of this woman who tells me she saw this stuff. Now, keep in mind, it's like I mentioned this the other day, Bigfoot. All these people say they've seen Bigfoot. Everybody has a camera in their pocket now. And nobody can get a picture of Bigfoot. All these people are filming themselves saying, y'all are never going to believe what happened to me up there on the mountain when FEMA came up. But they don't actually have a video of FEMA doing it. They're just telling you. How do you even know they're on a mountaintop? Our brains are breaking because of social media. We would all be better off if we got off Facebook and Twitter. I try to spend less time on it these days. And man, I get people all the time saying, "Did you see what this guy said?" Like Gateway Pundit. Good Lord! The moment someone tells me they read something on Gateway Pundit is the moment I know this is a person whose brain is broken. You had that scandal where Benny Johnson and others they didn't know it. He apparently didn't know it was being paid a ton of money, 6 figures. It was the Russians to push out stuff. The people in charge knew it, but I mean, these people were being paid whether they knew it or not by the Russians, and no one wanted to know who is paying me this massive amount of money. Who is this person? People are being lied to, and at this point, I think some people want to be lied to. All of our life is theology, every bit of it. And if your theology is broken, everything about you is going to break, because forget the God stuff. What is theology? The science of living well. And you will not be well. I started this program by saying We got the base. Some of the base of the Republican Party's gotten super stupid, believing stupid things. But on the Democratic side, it's a bunch of people broken and suffering mental health issues. Why? Because they got their theology wrong. And when you get your theology wrong, you can't live well. You begin to break down. You develop despair. It's why people who go to church are the people who are the most mentally healthy people in the country. You got to get your theology right, or everything is going to go wrong. Even your computer can go wrong. Why is this a great transition to Vision Computers? They can build you a computer and keep your computer going. They're going to save you money. They're going to save you time. They're going to save you heartache. VisionComputers.com or 404 Compute. They'll build you a better computer than what you get at the big box store. And then they'll give you their 5-star service. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews. So here's the deal. You'll get a special number, and when you call it, they'll answer the phone. You don't get on hold. They don't call you back unless they're really, really overwhelmed. But they know what they're doing. So you call and you say, hey, I saved this document. I know I saved this document. I can't find this document. Can you help me find it? They can remote into your computer. They can find it. Or you can say, my computer's glitching. They can walk you through what to do. They can remote into your computer. They can handle your email setup. They can handle your printer support, whatever you need. VisionComputers.com or 404 Compute. In fact, if you call them and tell them Eric sent you, you're going to save even more money. Call them at 404 Compute, tell them I sent you. And listen, if you don't have the computer from them, but you want their 5-star tech support, you can get that for just $179 a year. And they will be your IT solution. Call them at 404 Compute or go to visioncomputers.com today. Okay, a housekeeping note here at the end. I'm not going to be here on Monday. And I want you to know why. I normally wouldn't say this because then, like, you're not going to tune in on it. Except Jeff's going to be here. Jeff Katz is going to be here for me, so you're going to want to tune in for Jeff. But here's why I'm not going to be here on Monday. It is my 24th wedding anniversary. And my wife and I are not going somewhere by ourselves. We're actually taking my wife's parents and my children to Lake Rabun in North Georgia. We found this Airbnb house. It's right on the lake. And the leaves are changing, and I've been to Lake Burton, and I love it up there. I love Clayton. If I had the money, I would have a house on a lake up there, and I'm interested to see about, well, that was a loud vehicle going past. I'm interested to Lake Rabun. I've heard is way more laid back. Sadly, there's a great pizza restaurant, and it's like walking from the house. It's like right across the street, except there's a bend in the river, so you can't see it, or in the road. But it's called Max's, and it caught fire around the time Helene was coming through, and so we're not going to be able to eat there. But this is why I'm telling you this. We're right around the time of year 8 years ago, my wife was given 2 years to live. It came right before our anniversary. It was October 2016, I guess it was. If I got the yeah, it was October 2016 when everything was fine. It happened. They diagnosed her with this cancer. They finally, by October of 2016, they put her on Tagrisso, this drug. They said it's got 2 years to work. And here we are, 8 years later. So we've got 2 periods of time that we want our family together. And so I'm not going to be here. We'll actually be coming back from the mountains. And now, the plot twist in all this is our dog. We are worried that the dog might have cancer. It appears the dog does, and we have to go to a specialist on Monday. So my wife is going to go. We're taking separate cars, so it's going to be a veterinary specialist in Sandy Springs, Georgia. She's got to take the dog to on Monday to see what we can do. So it's kind of it's a little bit bittersweet, a little bit of stress, but I want my family together for this weekend. So we'll do something next year for 25 years, but this 24 years and 8 years removed from my wife being given 2 years to live, we just thought, you know what? The oldest is in college. All of our schedules align. Let's go to the mountains as a family. So we're going to go have some fun. So I won't be here Monday, but you guys have a great weekend. The weather's turning great. Got great football on Saturday across the nation, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.